Hello everyone, I've decided to make a new series on how to play no rotation in NES Tetris, and in this series I'm gonna show you and teach you everything that I know right now about this game mode. And at part 1 I want to cover the basics, and then I'm gonna show some situational things and more specific strategies. So basically what you want to do is clear lines, and that's pretty easy, but not really, because yeah, RNG is a great factor. So what I know about this game mode is that if you start stacking, and imagine you are not making ever a hole in your stack like this. This is looking really nice because if you just look at the pieces, you have the T, you have the J and the L. So there are three pieces that are like 3 wide on the top, and there is one piece on the bottom, but we're just gonna discount it for now. These are the 3-way pieces. And also you have the 2-way pieces, but with a 2-way piece you can't really clear a too wide gap. Like, you can't do this because there is actually only one piece that can clear the 8 wide stack, which is the square. And yeah, any other, the S and the Z is not really good. So this is out of question, so we don't really want to do something like this. Yeah, we can discount the 9 wide stack as well, because there is also only one piece that can clear anything, which is the L piece. And again, the L piece is going to cover, after you place the L piece, cover everything under that line. So this is just basically not really going to work. So what you are end up doing is we discount these things mostly, because if you have a stack like this, which is only one dependency, I'm gonna call something a dependency if there is only one piece that can help you. So this is like a square dependency. You don't want to cover this with anything. You want to get every single line, because you are working for this really hard. And if you discard the bottom one, there is a really high chance that you never gonna uncover it, and you just not gonna be able to clear that first line. But you've already set it up, so discarding these lines is something you don't really want to do. So again, this is just leaving us with the strategy that we can't really afford to make an 8 wide stack most of the times. There are specific positions where it's fine, but most of the time not. So when we now know that most of our pieces are 3 wide pieces, that's why the 7 wide stack is the best. Because if you have something like this on your right or on your left, it doesn't really matter. It's just an RNG thing that makes the right well a little bit better, but not much. Even in a 50 line game, the expected value only jumps by 1. So left well and right well is basically the same thing. So everything I'm saying on the right, you can implement it on the left, just mirror everything. So most of the times the 3-way pieces can clear this line, and what ends up happening after you clear the line, you get an extra meal, but that is not a problem, because this is still really nice. Even if you get another L like this, it's not a bad thing, because yeah, you get one more line, and what now? Your stack is actually improved. It's really hard to see, but this is really good, because now not just 3-way pieces can burn this. Now there are many more combinations that can help you. Even a square, even a Z piece. Those are really good, because now you are not blocking anything if you place the for example the Z piece here. Sorry, I'm not really used to this one. But yeah, imagine you place this and you clear the second line. After you clear the second line, I'm gonna clear it. This is going to drop down. So you will end up with something like this, but this is not bad because the J piece exists. And after you get a J piece, which is basically a double, and you end up with the same thing before the L, which is like really nice. So now you can like really realize why this is so good, because literally every piece is good to burn on the left except the long bar. So we have to do something with the long bar. We're gonna talk about the long bar later as well, but the best thing to deal with the long bar is to have a stack that is accommodating the long bar. So if you have the 7 byte setup, you might also want to have some lines, not really many, because if you have a 6 byte stack which is not on the bottom, only the long bar can help you, because if you place anything here, this is really bad. Trust me, most of the times you never gonna get anything below that overhang, because you can't place a 3 byte piece because you just blocked it. So basically the only piece that is going to help you in this situation is the S piece. And you're gonna see, because if you have a 6 byte stack and a 4 byte val like this is like not clearable, because you have a hole here, but if you place something here, it's the same thing. You can only place the L and again the J, and they are just gonna alternate and never going to solve themselves. So yeah, you don't really want to do that. So that's going to leave us with the fact that if you have a stack like this, these are only going to be clearable with long bars. Okay, but what happens if your stack is like 6 byte? Is it like better? A little bit, but not much. Because the same thing is going to appear again. Anytime you can clear it with a long bar, and you can clear it with 2 squares. So basically it's now a little better, but the problem is if you have a square here, and imagine your next piece is an S again, that's gonna leave us with the same thing, that this is not clearable. So basically you can only have squares and long bars, and not a single other piece can burn this. So this is not really good. It's like not the end of the world, because you are going to be able to score a couple of these lines, but most of the times if you are not extremely lucky, you're not gonna score pretty much like half of it. Meanwhile, with the 7 byte stack, which I've showed you a little ago, those are like really close to 100%, because if you have something like this, you can get pieces, and eventually you are going to clear this. Okay, so that's the basic idea of how your stack should look like, but I didn't tell you how to achieve it, because most of the time you cannot have like this strategy because of RNG. Yeah, it's just really nice, but how to achieve it? So what you want to look for is to make it like look like this. And how can you do that? Basically, the best scenario is something like, if you are stacking on the right, you want Z pieces and then J pieces. That's your ideal thing. So imagine you have a Z piece and then a J piece. This is like a little 3 by 3 square, but not exactly, because there is a hole here, and that hole is the key idea. Because yeah, not really on the bottom, but you're gonna see it if I do it once more, like I got this one. Now you cannot name a single piece that is not going to fit here like anywhere. Basically, if you have Z, you can tuck it like here, and even over it, like into the second hole. And you can do the same with every single other piece. You can tuck an S here, you can tuck the T here as well. So like everything, even the long bar, you're gonna see where the long bar goes. Yeah, it's going to go on the bottom. And I didn't talk about two other pieces because they are interesting. So if you have a square, that's still kind of like you can figure it out because this is really good. And now if you have something like this, you're gonna see that, oh, you have an L piece. That's really nice because the L piece is going to give you the same thing that was like happening before. You see, that's the same 3x3 square, but with two other pieces. So building up your right, if you want this pattern to like continue, you have two options, and this is the key idea. Also, there is one more thing to it, because imagine you get a square, because yeah, that's going to happen many times, and you're not going to get the L but the J. And oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to place the J here like this one. This is still not terrible. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you have a T or if you have an S, you're gonna be able to like tuck it here, and that is really similar to our pattern, but it's like there is an extra line and there is an extra minnow here, which is like kind of weird, but it still accommodate everything. So basically that's what you want on your right. Okay, how to make it look like a 7 byte stack? That's pretty easy. All you have to do is like get a little lucky. So after you have the long bar here, that's pretty nice, because now that's a 6 byte thing. You can burn it with another long bar. That's basically it. But there is a really interesting thing, because the long bar shouldn't go to the really left if you have a long bar here, because we talked about that we want 7 byte stack, because it is going to accommodate every single 3 byte piece on the left, and that's a burn. Yes, that's it. You can place the long bar into the middle, which is much better. You can ask why. Yeah, now we see, because there is a 3 byte gap on my left, and that is going to be clearing the second line. And after that, what is happening on the bottom is not bad, because if you have a 3 byte gap, that's pretty bad if it's on the if that gap is on your side, on your really left, unless it's still not the end of the world. We're gonna talk about it soon. But if you have something like this, imagine something like this, this is not that bad, because the next thing, because we have this 3 byte setup on my right, anytime I've got a square and I don't really want to build much higher because it's already too high, I can place the square here, which is going to leave us with step 2, how to accommodate now. Now the stack is 5 wide. This is the perfect scenario, because now I can place an S piece here and set up for a T, and that's like really good. And also I can place another square here, and that's gonna leave us with 2 3-wide gaps here, and that's going to perfectly accommodate here, even for a Z to tuck it here and then clear it with an L, or a T and a J, yeah, T and a J, like this, T and then the J here, and that's basically it. I'm going to be able to clear this with many combinations, and that's why it's so good. Okay, but what happens if I don't have a square and I don't have an S? I have a solution for that as well. And this looks really counterintuitive for the first time, but you're gonna see it. So imagine I have my next piece is this one, and I can't build up any higher on my right because I'm too high. I can place it here. What? Yes, that's correct. This is the really best move because now I have again many solutions. Imagine my two next pieces is a long bar and a square. I can just tag the long bar and take the burn with the square. If it's like the perfect scenario, that's gonna be an L piece. And you see, now I have the 7 byte stack with a 6 byte stack on top. So that's really good. That's why this is like perfect scenario. And again, what should I look for? The next line. The next line should be like cleared the same way. If you have a long bar, you can place the long bar here and do the same. But if you have fewer long bars at the beginning, you can tuck a Z, and now you see the pattern. You don't want to burn this with a long bar anymore. You want to tuck an L first, and then do the same thing. And you see, this is like kind of easy, because if you have now something like an S and then a square, the square is really nice here. I can do the same again, and that's pretty much it. And the main idea with this stack is that you don't need the square first. It's absolutely possible to place the S first, and you can wait for the square later. Even if you have another, like, I don't know, stacking like this, and maybe even here, it doesn't matter. You can just wait and tuck it. That's perfect. Okay, but what happens if your stack is ruined? So you can't do it as I was talking about, and you are forced to make holes like this one. That's not the end of the world. What you have to avoid here is the T. If you have a T, you should never burn it unless you are like really high and forced to do it. Why? Because after you clear the second line, you're gonna see what is going on. The problem here is your hole is going down like one place, and now none of your lines are burnable. The bottom one is not burnable because there is no piece that has two separated nodes on the bottom. And yeah, the second line is not clearable anymore. Hey, that's pretty bad. Okay, let's go back. What happens if I don't place the T here? If I place the J or the L here? Now it's much different, because now what remains is not two separated holes, but a two-way hole. And we've learned that there are two pieces, namely the Z and the square, that is going to help you here. So you are done. That's pretty good. Also, if you have an L that clears this line and your hole goes down like here, like here, like this, and your stack is going to go down. This is something I call an elevation cheat, because now you can get another L and just keep this hole. You can see it pretty much easily. This is going to clear you another line without discarding the bottom one. So you don't have to discard that line. Basically what I'm trying to tell you here is to think in like rectangles. I think that's the idea what I was trying to do here. So what you have here is, I don't know how to like show it, but I think like, you see, this is like a one rectangle, like a one high rectangle, but on top of it you have a 3 wide rectangle, and that is also clearable. If you have a hole in this one, like here, then yeah, it's not a rectangle anymore. You don't want to clear that one. You don't want to place anything there, because that is already not clearable. That's the idea. So if you have these little rectangles, you want to focus on those rectangles, and if you have a bad piece like a T, you can just place it to the right and say that, okay, my next line is garbage, I'm not gonna focus with that one. So if I have a bad long bar or a bad anything that I don't want to like place anywhere else, I can place this into this trash line, because this was a trash line anyway, because there was a hole, you see, on my right. So that's pretty much it. Okay, so now we know that I don't really want to look for 6 white stacks. I want to look for 7 white. So what happens if I have something like this? There is a hole, I don't really care, and I stack and I stacked, and I got something like I really wanted, like a stack like this, I don't know, with a couple of holes, like maybe like this. This is like pretty fine, because I want to burn this one and then set up for another one. So if you're gonna say that no, I'm not gonna get a long bar to clear my third line, that's gonna happen many times. You just got drilled with long bars. Then you can tuck something like this here, it doesn't matter, or you can place a T here. But remember, you want to make it 7 wide, because if it's not 7 wide, much harder to like clear it. You want it to be 7 wide. Imagine you have the T, and as I mentioned, you can place the T here, but the T being placed here is really awkward. After you clear here anything, with anything, it doesn't really matter. You can't use the long bar to burn this, because the long bar is going to fall down one line more, and that's really awkward, because you don't really want to place anything here on the left. You can't place any 2 wide, only a 3 wide can help you to do the elevation cheat, which I was talking about earlier. So yeah, that's pretty bad. But if you have this bad T, which we were talking about, you can place this T here and say that, ha, now I have 4 wide, which is not the end of the world, because any 3 wide can make it a 7 wide set. And this is much better now, because this is clearable with most of the 3 wide pieces, which is really good. That's why it is like a kind of counterintuitive, but fine. Okay, so let's talk about the opening. What happens if you have many bad pieces? For example, you have a T and then a long bar. Okay, where should you place the T and where should you place the long bar? This is pretty easy. The T always should go to the right side, and the long bar, you can place it on top. That's pretty easy. Okay, this is good. We know we want a 7 wide stack, so anytime I have a 2 wide piece on the bottom, I want to tuck it, or even the square, even the other one, it doesn't really matter, because if I have another one of these things, that's already going to make me, yeah, 7 wide, and I'm gonna be able to clear it. Even though if it was an S, still I have 2 pieces that can clear these. Okay, but what happens if not the obvious ones comes? Because you know, the best start that you can have is basically a square. The square is like by default the best, because it goes to the right, and now pretty much any other piece is good. And you want a J really soon after, I mean on the right, because that's gonna accommodate even more pieces. You can place anytime a Z on top of it. You can place an S by tacking a T, by tacking a long bar on the bottom. So anything, life is good. But what happens if at this position you have a square and your next piece is also a square? It's really fine to like discard those to the right and make one hole. It doesn't matter. What we were talking about is still applies. You want to focus on these rectangles and just don't even care about that line, because if you discard anything on your stack below that line, that's never gonna be, you will never gonna be able to clear it. It's just much better to discard it on top. So if you have a T which is highly not appreciated on your stack, I don't know, this one is good because now it is appreciated, but imagine if the stack is looking not really nice, like I don't know, this one, and the T is bad, you can just throw the T to the really right. You don't need to care about it. And even the other one is good. I just really don't think that if your next piece is not a J, you should do this, because anyway you're gonna discard that line, and it's fine, because if you place it on the bottom you would discard one line anyway, but this way you are still having the chance to clear the bottom. Meanwhile, if you put it to the bottom, that would ruin everything. So okay, but where should I tuck? This is a really tough question. Even if I have the like best stack, I don't know, like this, it's really tough to like answer these questions, because what is a really good advice is to tuck everything the most bottom to the most bottom as it possible. So if you have a long bar, you should place it on the bottom like every single time. But here comes the interesting part. Where should you place this piece? This is a really awkward piece. Do you really want to place it to the bottom? Because what makes this really hard is the bottom is still really dependent on this piece, and now it's not just the bottom, it's the third line as well. Basically you need a long bar, or you need another Z piece, and also you might need the Z pieces to build your right, so you don't really want to waste many of your Z pieces to like building your stack and on burning, because those pieces are needed on your right for building. So it's really tough to say, but in NoRo there is a new concept, is to play with your next piece. It is really dependent on your next piece. If your next piece is something like a long bar, this is fine. This is like perfect. But if your next piece is not a long bar and you don't want to place the long bar on the bottom, you should, but as I said, most times you should place it here, but at this position you should place it here. This is just better for the obvious reasons I've talked, because the bottom line is most the times, I mean more often than not, it's just gonna be discarded. I'm sorry about that one, but it is really hard to like clear it. Even if you have a long bar like this one, it's still really hard to clear it like perfectly, because you know your next long bar shouldn't clear this, it should go to the next one and then clear it with something like this. Oh, I'm sorry. And then what we were talking about, now you can see after I clear this line, it's gonna be something like this, and this is hopping down like by one. So I'm just gonna go lazy and do this. You want to tuck, yeah, you see it. There is two solutions. One is really intuitive and one is a little bit counterintuitive, and this is why your next piece is really important. If your next piece is the L piece. That's easy. You want to place the L piece here, and again, literally any 3 white is good here, another L is good here, and even 2 white pieces can burn this. But there is another really interesting thing, is to think about the Z piece. Yeah, it looks quite weird, but again, it doesn't matter the order. You have a J and an L. What will you do with J and L? Yeah, the L is pretty obvious, you're gonna burn, but you can do something else if you have the J first, or even if you have the T, it's still fine. You see that? That's a double setup, and this is really common in NoRo, and that's why these like overhangs not that bad. So if you have an overhang like a 7 white overhang over a 6 white overhang, but the 6 white is too deep, like even if it's like a little higher, sorry, like I'm gonna make it like this one, so your stack is something like this, it's still fine, because as I showed you, you can, oh I'm sorry, you can tag the J piece here, and after you skim a double, your stack is still fine. Okay, but what happens if there is one hole? It's still fine, because on your left, what you want to tuck here is actually 2 pieces, and they are exactly the same. It's the T piece. It's gonna end up with a L piece, and after you clear the L piece, you're gonna see that now what ends up happening is you having a 7 white stack, but the extra minnow, this minnow, it doesn't really matter, you can't get to it until you clear the second one. So if you have the extra minnow on the right, there is a solution which is not piece order dependent, which is the L plus the T. It doesn't matter which order you clear it, you're gonna get 3 lines with this one, a single and then a double, and it solves cleanly. And there is another solution, but that one is piece order dependent. You need a Z piece first, oh sorry, no, an S piece first, which is this one, and then you want the L piece, but that is order dependent. So if you place the S first and your next piece is not an L, you need to wait for the L. That's like it. So basically you have to build your stack the way I told you, and build your right to accommodate the pieces to build your stack. And if it's an L first, then you can wait for the T. But there are many times your next 2 pieces making the combination to clear this, and you're absolutely fine. And that's what you're aiming for. Okay, I want to show you one more thing with NoRo, which happens many times. It's the, oh, I got S bursted. What should I do if I got like S bursted? So imagine your stack is like kind of perfect and everything. So what should you do? So basically, what you want to do with your S piece is to always stack it so your top is 5 wide. That's like, again, counterintuitive, but your bottom is going to be 6 wide. And if you do the same on the bottom, now you see the problem. Yeah, that's kind of not really good, because even if you have this one and the T, there is still a hole. It's really hard to like clear. So what happens if you don't place it here, but like one line down, like here? Oh, oh, sorry. This was not that great. Oh, so it's basically the same, because now if you have another S, that's pretty bad. You see? If I place it here, now I have one hole. Oh, that's worse. That's not even clearable. Oh, so what should I really do? What I told you is really the best thing. You always want to make it in a way, unless your next piece is a long bar. So this placement is a little sassy. Not the worst, but a little sassy, because this only solves with, cleanly with a couple of things, like two L's with the elevation sheet, and then a third one. E, that doesn't really happen oftentimes. And there is another solution which happens much more times with the T, and then an L, and what ends up happening is a square. So you can solve it. So when you should do this, when you should opt for this one and not the top one, it's basically only when your next piece is a long bar or your next piece is an L piece. But the L piece is also not the greatest, because even if you have the L piece, now you are too L dependent, because if you place the T here, that's a 3 wide gap, and 3 wide gaps are not really good in NoRo, because if you have a 3 wide gap like this is not clearable until you make it too deep. You see, if you don't have a too deep gap, too deep, yeah, it's a gap actually, so a too deep 3 wide gap, it's not clearable, for the obvious reasons I've told you at the beginning of the video, that this is not even clearable. This is even clearable, but you need a sassy luck with the LPs and the square. And I don't really want to be like rude, but this is not happening many times. Even if you have one of them, you still need to wait for the other one, and it happening in a low amount of time, that's just not really it. But if you have a Mino here, that's like absolutely kind of impossible to clear this one. Not exactly impossible, because for example in this situation you can have a long bar first and then place another long bar here, and maybe it's fine, maybe it's not, it's just not really optimal. That's it. So what about holes? Where I should make the holes? I think after playing many games with like 7-bag RNG, I can tell you one thing. If you want to push high and make holes like somewhere in your stack, that should be always more to the left. So if you have something here, this is a hole that is most often than not is not going to be clearable. So if you have a square and you place it here, you basically discarded the bottom line. It's just the nature of the game which is going to prevent you from like clearing that line. But if you would tuck here a Z piece, I'm not gonna say that you're not gonna clear the bottom one, because as I told you, even if you have the L piece, what ends up happening is not that bad. After you clear this line, now you can see with a shape like this you can have Z or S pieces. Again, it doesn't really matter if this one or the other one, you're gonna end up with a T dependency, and after you get the T, it's still fine. Okay, but what happens if I get absolutely droughted? Because it is going to happen at some point. You cannot get perfect luck for the entire of the game. Again, don't feel like you cannot make holes. You can make holes. Like, this is fine. You can make even 2 holes if you feel like you need that. Like, This is not terrible. And even if your next piece is something like a T, sometimes you can do this. Yeah, you discarded 2 lines, but what? Eventually you will get the dependency, and those 2 lines discarded is something that you were never worked for. Imagine you have never put anything here, like not even a single thing. You have never tried to clear these ones, but you've already placed many pieces here, discarded other ones to have like this dependency. So you absolutely have to clear this. If you don't clear this, basically you made this hole with no point, and you throw pieces to the right with for like 0. Don't do that. That's like stupid. That's why you can discard lines which were never built. But if you build a line, please just don't discard it. It's not a good thing. Again, you can make smart moves, because if you have a long bar and then a square like your next 2 pieces, you can do this. It's like fine. You skim the one and you have still the chance to clear the T. Clear the 2 lines with the T and build up your right later on. It's fine. Just don't cover this T hole, like this shadow T hole, because if you cover it, you're gonna discard 2 lines and not justify the holes on your stacks which were created. And one more thing I think I want to tell you here, if your stack is like perfect, in a word, like this one, okay, it is, your stack is screaming for something, I don't know, like this one, and not this one, like this. Okay, imagine this one. What should you do here? This is an interesting question. Like, what should happen with this area? That's a hard question, because your stack is screaming for a solution, which I'm pretty sure you can all see is the Z piece. But that's bad, because if you place the Z piece here, now you're pretty fucked for one reason, and for one reason only. Oh, how do you want to clear these ones? This is a 5-byte setup, which doesn't have many solutions. Basically, you can tag this one, but again, this is like sassy. Even if a square shows up, you're gonna discard 1 line, and the next one is like still sassy. Oh, so that's not the best solution. That's true. Yes, you can get really lucky here and get pieces like, I don't know, like this one, and then 2 squares, and you can already see that this is so much pieces specifically on the left, and it has to be in order, because you cannot place these in any other order. So the best solution here is something that is really interesting. If you have a Z piece, you should never place the Z piece here, like never ever, is the long bar. You always want to place the long bar here and then the Z piece. Sorry. Because what ends up happening, you have 2 lines which is 7 wide, and you're gonna be able to clear those even with elevation cheat, because this is only a 1 hole. And also sometimes if your top is like cool, you can tag the T. Okay, but hey, it's still like a stairway. I don't understand. What should I do here? Yes, but now you do, because now this is accommodating a long bar and then a square. That's how you can keep up building. Like the square is most often than not the finishing piece. And again, if you end up with a 2 wide hole like this one, you still don't need to get any deep rest, anything, because even 2 squares like this, or even 2 long bars, like this can make your stack perfect, and it's stackable, doable, doesn't really matter which one ever shows up for the first time, you should stick with it. But if you have a square and then a long bar, it's an interesting question. Which one should you place here? That is exactly and always should be the long bar, because the long bar is making it already 7 byte and the square is a dependency. The long bar is maybe a dependency, maybe just discarding one line, but the square, if you don't get the dependency, is going to discard 2 lines. That's why the long bar is a better choice here than the square. But if you have the square first, it's still fine to go here, build, get another one, and be happy. Okay, but what happens if your stack is like this? Again, don't panic. Most of the times, you want to place a square here, which is incorrect. Because if you place a square here, now your stack is screaming for 3 long bars. That's extreme to have before you have to like make the 7 byte stack on top of it. And if you make the 7 byte stack on top of it, if it's a 3 byte gap, that's not solvable. I'm sorry. There is no solution. So basically that's out of question. So what should I do here? There is a really interesting thing in NoRo which I often do. If my next piece is a square and my current piece is an S, like this one, you can do this setup and that's not bad. Basically, I made this overhang, and I've already told you that there is the T plus L, which doesn't need the order in any way, and there is the S plus L, which solve this cleanly. So basically it's gonna disappear this one and clear 3 lines, and you can still do anything here. But what you should tuck here is a 3 byte piece. The best 3 byte piece you can tuck here is obviously the J, because it can be still cleared cleanly. So if you have something like another J, then I can tuck the J and get a square and claim that your stack is the same as I showed you before. Okay, but that's just not gonna happen many times. Sorry, like this one. But any other 3-way is good, because as I told you, you're gonna be able to clear anything on the bottom. It's like fine, and then just discard this line. It's hard because again, if you tuck the square here, it's not a bad move at all. Your only solution here is to go perfect, is to tuck the J and take the W with the L. And that's a little risky. I would say it's like asking for trouble. Yeah, in a PB game you can do that, but you have to like prepare. Most of the time this is going to be bad. If it's in the bottom, it's not that bad, because eventually you will get it. But if your stack is higher, you definitely shouldn't do that, because you don't have the time to discard pieces on your right and in your middle while you are building your 7 byte things, and eventually getting the L piece. If it's too high, you won't have time to get the L piece. That's how RNG works. And sometimes even if you do it here, you're gonna get droughted and not gonna be able to take it anyway. And again, if you have a stack like this, like everything is perfect except the bottom one. And this is really interesting. If your current piece is the Z and your next piece is either the J or the L, it doesn't matter, because if it's the L, you can tuck it and take the W. It's pretty easy. And if it is the other one, the J, then you can place it here it's counterintuitive. Why not tucking it? But because you know I've already discarded the first line, I don't care about it anyway, and I can take the burn like this one. It's still fine. So that's easy, and that's not the Z piece only. You can do the same with the square. It doesn't matter. You can do this double elevation. I mean, it's an elevation cheat, but it for a double, the square is going here, and the J piece is going to take your double, and you can do the same by placing it here and take the double with the L piece. So basically, these are the really basic things I think about NoRo, and I hope it is helpful for your gameplay. I'm going to come here with some more and more specific things about how to stack, what you should look for, what is a good like gamble, what is not a good gamble, where should you really focus on burning, and when do you place another piece here and not taking a single line with it, how long should you stack, and when you should start to burn, and when you should not wait for anything else, anytime more on a specific piece, and like say that no, I'm not gonna wait for it because that is just going to ruin everything on my stack. And yeah, that's why sometimes it's okay to block these, but those are more advanced things, so I think I keep it like this one. So let me know what should I cover in the next one, if there is like any specific question. And yeah, see you next time. Hello.